Hello, what's going on everyone? Sebastian here with Spin Driving School, and in today's video we are going to take a look at up and downhill driving. Hill start is probably the most common question that I get when it comes to hills, at least up hills. So how do you start the car, or how do you prevent the car from rolling back? Unless you have hill assist, there are two ways you can essentially manage that. So one of them is by switching your feet over and using your left foot to brake and your right foot to accelerate, which I will show momentarily. And the other way would be to crank up your handbrake or your foot brake, depending which one you have, what kind of car you have. And then as you release the handbrake, you accelerate. So that also prevents the car from rolling backwards. You know, depending on the hill, and again, what kind of car you drive, how heavy the vehicle is, all these things play into how much your car is going to roll back. So that is essentially that, but we'll just get right into the video and go over the details there. So let's go. So first thing, here's your technique for your 2 feet on the pedal. So again, I'm just switching my left foot over to the brake and then my right foot over to the accelerator as it normally would be, and then as I'm releasing the brake, I'm accelerating. So it's a little bit tricky, but you know, if you do it a couple of times, you get used to it. So this is probably one of the most feared hills boundary. So again, just come to a full stop normally, switch my feet over, and then as I'm going up or exiting from the intersection, essentially I'm releasing the brake and then just accelerating. Sometimes you might have to accelerate a little bit harder depending on the vehicle, just to get the momentum going, depending on the hill. If you look at that Tesla, he's just flying up there because those guys have amazing torque. Another second most feared hill is this one on by Brentwood, going up the hill here. So you know, depending if you're the first car in line or the second car in line, if there's vehicles behind you, right? So if you stop behind a car, see I rolled back there a little bit, make sure that you give yourself some space in case the car in front of you rolls into you. So if you're stopping on the hill, make sure that you give yourself and the cars in front of you an extra space, and you hope for the car behind you to do the same thing. I'm using the left foot on the pedal there on the brake, and I am cranking it up the hill. If you see, I'm going to be using my lower gears as well, just to give myself a little bit more power. So I'm constantly, honestly, when I drive, whether I drive manual or automatic, I'm constantly using the shifter and my engine brakes, even just for regular slowdowns. So that's just the way I drive. Don't do it on the test, not recommended. So again, I'm using both feet. And I'm using the handbrake too, in this case, just to show you an example that as you release the brake and you accelerate, you can also achieve the same goals. However, using the two feet method, which I'll show again here, is probably more common. So I'm just switching my foot over, and then I'm just depressing the brake and accelerating as I'm going uphill. So that prevents the car from rolling backwards. There's still going to be a little bit of kickback depending on the car, depending on the size of the hill and how steep it is, etc., etc. However, for the most part, you shall be safe. And in some cases, if you're going up really, really steep hills, depending on the car and your level of experience, you may be using your lower or your second or your, you know, whatever gearbox you have available to you to make the car go a little bit faster. If you hear the engine is struggling right now, I shouldn't say struggling, it's just going into higher RPM. So I'm basically torquing the shit out of the car just so I can climb the hill. Once I get momentum, then I usually will switch my gears back to drive or into third gear, sometimes into second. Again, depending on what kind of gearbox you have and how your gears are laid out, that is going to vary, as it is different for different vehicles. So and it sounds like, you know, sounds like you're racing, because you know, it's a bit loud when you use your lower gears, but that's what it sounds like. It's not bad, it's not illegal, it's not bad for the car, so. If you see on this hill, I'm gonna roll back a little bit. Here we go. So I'm gonna use the same method again, the to the left foot method. Switching over. And off we go. Now going up SFU. This is a big ass hill, very steep, going up and down. So if you see, I'm shifting down to my second gear. Back into drive once I have momentum, and then you can just maintain that speed, which in this case it's 60. I'm just playing with the camera, trying to get a better view, though it didn't really work, but it is what it is. And in most cases, if you go into your lower gears and you have and you gain enough momentum, once you go back into drive, you should be fine. Now, once you come to a full stop, like in this case, we stop for the traffic light and for pedestrians, then everything essentially restarts, right? So you might need to downshift into your lower gears again to get momentum, because off the start, the car is going to be very slow and sluggish because you're fighting gravity and all that weight, right? So you're going up a hill and then you're fighting gravity, and then the weight of the car, it's just basic physics. So the car is not going to have the same pickup and the same momentum as it would downhill or on a flat surface, right? So it's going to take you a little bit to get up to that speed, and depending on what's going on behind you, you might be pissing some people off, right? So either you have to accelerate really hard, or you can use the lower gears and downshift to get yourself a little bit more torque and a little bit more power, and then you can upshift to your drive or whatever gear you're using after that if you wish. That is just a personal choice. It's what I do, it's the way I drive. But you know, 30 years of experience and driving probably hundreds of different vehicles throughout my life. That's the way you do it. Now going downhill, and again, you have to be careful, because specifically on this hill, there are signs where engine brakes are not allowed. So you have to be careful, because if you're using your engine brakes or up or downshifting, your brake lights don't come on at the back, and then the cars behind you don't know when you're braking, and that can cause a problem. So you have to be careful when you're using engine brakes. If it's not allowed, then you're not supposed to, because you can actually get a ticket for that or get into an accident. I use my engine brakes pretty much all the time, even just for driving in a straight line, or just to maintain my speed, or even just to slow down. I downshift constantly. Yeah, so you listen to the engine. I'll show the speedometer and the RPM in a second. So I'm hovering around 65 here, maybe 70, just under 4,000 RPM. And I'm not using any foot brake at all. Basically, I'm just maintaining the speed only with my engine brakes. So I'm not touching the brake at all. And you can achieve that just by playing around a little bit and, you know, experiencing and just, you know, testing these things out depending on the car. And don't just do it willy-nilly. Ask your parents if that's going to be the case, because you don't want to get in trouble. You're not going to break anything. However, depending on the vehicle and how it's, with electric cars, it's probably going to be completely different. But there are a lot of different ways to maintain and mitigate your speed depending how your gearbox is, I shouldn't say laid out, I've used that word before, but how it's designed. That's it. That's all. I hope this video was helpful. I get these questions a lot, and at the end of the day, you just gotta go out there and practice. And don't be scared. You're not gonna break anything. That's what the gears are for. So stay safe out there, folks. Keep on practicing. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you for your support. Arrivederci.